And we're live. Welcome to Moped Outlaws, episode 98.
Yeah, even though it says 99.
That's right. Let me
We
fix
had a
that.
cancellation.
Yeah. I'm going to fix that. Anyway, we're here with Chris. It's great to have you
Hiya.
from Newcastle, United Kingdom.
Thanks for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure, and I must say I've been listening to some of your podcasts to date. I think I've got about 4 or 5 down, and I'm absolutely loving the show, to be honest. And I think there's something that really good about the questions that you're putting forward to guests. I think it's really nice to listen to. We're loving it.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to say, like, Mark and I kind of geeked out over your bio because the martial arts and Jedi. In fact, Mark Went is a Jedi.
Right.
Yeah. So
you say
I'm
right,
honored.
like you know that. How do you know that, Chris?
No, I was just like, wow, I'm honored to meet a real one. I thought they'd all been finished off, but they're still going.
Yeah, we're still going. Yeah.
hidden.
There's a story there, but this isn't about me. This is about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to just start. Like, I was really interested in the Calm campaign.
Right. Okay.
So I'd love it if you just start talking a little bit about what inspired you to get on board with that and what your hopes and aspirations are for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the Calm isn't something I'm, personally, I'm not like an employee or, I haven't had anything to do with the organization of it. So basically through the podcasts and things that we'll be rolling out this year, we do take donations because everything we try and deliver, we try and make all of the information freely available for people. So people that can give, because we are big believers in the power of giving. So people that do want to give, this year and looking forwards, we're looking to raise money for Calm. And Calm is the campaign against living miserably. It's a charity which focuses on providing support and preventative measures for people who are unfortunately seeing that their only option may be to end their own life, and it's there to help provide care and support for people who are considering suicide for sad reasons.
Do you mind, like, one of the things I find fascinating with your story is you've shared that you have struggled with mental illness.
Yeah.
And you also are deep in martial arts. And I've always attributed to the martial art practice an element of mental stability, for lack of a better word. And it fascinated me that on the course of your going deep in the martial arts, you also found yourself in this state of mental challenge.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the appeal that we see in martial arts, obviously we see the stereotypical, your Bruce Lees and all of your heroes, and we do, you sort of associate martial arts practice with a lot of mental strength. And like you say, you put it quite well, that mental stability, and there is that appeal. However, I think everybody has to deal with what I personally sort of call what is mental weather. So your mind is like a weather system, and sometimes it's sunny, and sometimes it's rainy, and sometimes it's stormy, and it's this is an inevitability. Whatever situation we put ourselves in our life, whatever we practice in, whatever You know, wherever our home is, whatever our life looks like, we're all subject to mental weather. And sometimes, you know, we need a little bit of help in dealing with that. Sometimes we need someone to pass us an umbrella. Sometimes it's nice and shiny and we've got people to enjoy it with. Some people don't. So yeah, that was definitely appeal to me when I started studying martial arts and Buddhism for that matter, and it's definitely helped me. It has definitely given me stability, something that is always there to rely on when times are tough. And I think it's good to remember that is there, because sometimes we can forget, or sometimes we don't seem to be able to validate that that's there. We don't seem to be able to sort of give it the credibility sometimes, as if it's like no use to do this, because that feeling of, you know, things maybe won't get better.
So when you're saying it, are you referring to the tools available to an individual that help weather a storm mentally?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm trying to think how best to put it. So with any, it doesn't matter if you're doing martial arts or if you're in a club, or if you're in a close knit group of whatever form, there's a lot of value in being a part of something, in having connections with people, and whether you're in a martial arts club or you're in even a gaming club, there's that, it's that connection that kind of forms a bit of a bridge, a bit of a support mechanism for when we're getting through, and when we have things like, you know, even if it's like ritual practice, because in martial arts you see what you could describe as ritual practice, where you go through the motions, you go in the hall, you do your bows, you line up, and you practice certain things in a certain way. And that being able to go through that process but also be connected to people alongside gives you that support, that you're not on your own, which a lot of the times we can feel that we are.
Yeah. Also, it's sort of an interesting thing because it takes a mental fortitude, but it's also converse in that when you practice physicality, it stabilizes the mental as well.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got this mind body synchronization going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most people get confused about martial arts from my perspective. Do you agree that like some people think of it as like learning to be violent properly? And my take on it is it's actually learning how to shed the energy of violence by being a protector and being a defender.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing is martial arts is so wide. I mean, you can if you enjoy being violent, you could find a club and an instructor that would answer that need. But also, if you want to learn how to be non-violent, you can certainly find clubs and instructors that will answer that need. Some people are looking for a very practical martial art, and they're wanting to purely focus on self-defense applications and ways to get out of certain situations, you know, certain holds. And there's instructors that also value that and will teach you that. But there's also people that really value the traditional aspect, and they really value learning things in a very almost spiritual way. And there are instructors that will answer that. And I'm probably more towards that side. But I do believe there's something martial arts for everybody. I mean, to answer your question on if I think martial arts is violent, no, it's not in any way any more than chess is violent. You can learn how to play chess, and you could probably learn how to play chess very aggressively if you wanted to. But the chess is just a system. It's a game. It's probably more than a game. I know people that are really sort of experts probably would be offended with me saying it's just a game, but it's a system. It's a system of moves and a system of strategies, which and you can use those moves and strategies however you want. And martial arts is the same. Ultimately, particularly traditional martial arts, they are in themselves complete systems of moves and strategies, and you can practice them in a very, you can practice them almost with equanimity, where, you can just not be aggressive. You can not be, you can be sort of very matter of fact about it, and there's a lot of peace in that, and you almost build faith, like a kind of a faith in what you practice, and the more you do that practice, the more your faith can build up, and that in itself gives you stability as well.
Yeah. Do you understand the concept of chi, and how would you explain the concept of chi?
Oh, well, I would definitely prefer to leave chi to the chi experts. I don't technically use the term myself. I used to practice Tai Chi, which obviously emphasizes chi a lot more. However, I find, because what I practice is a more physical style, a more direct of blocks, kicks, punches, etc. Sometimes chi can be quite confusing if you try and get people to, send energy to certain places without really understanding what it is they're trying to do. And yeah, I do believe, chi, essentially the way I understand it, is pretty much the force of change. So it's when one changes from one form to the other, yin and yang, for example. It really is just a force of change, and how we learn to. It's something really that we respect rather than manipulate. I think chi is probably a good way of describing it.
That's I have a question. Is there something you could say to an individual that if an individual finds they want to change their mental state, so they have a realization, I'm in a mental state that I don't want to be in. Is there an initial action or something that you could say, well, here's a great way to start to change your mental state?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is give it 5 minutes. And the reason I would say that is because your mental state is changing all the time. And a lot of the time, our problems don't come from our mental state. Well, it does come from our mental state being what it is, but a lot of the problem is the fact that we think that that's never going to change, and it's always going to be like that. And when I was going through really tough times, a big factor of that was the fact that I thought I was never going to get out of that. And the truth is that sun goes up, sun goes down, and things do change, and the mental state does change. So that's the very first thing I would say to that. If we're talking about sort of dissatisfaction with a mental state, if someone is experiencing dissatisfaction about how their mental state is, the other thing I would say is a lot of times the dissatisfaction is reinforced by the thought that people may not think that they are good enough. And I think that's a big problem. It's not so much that they want to be somewhere else. They actually also think that they're not good enough where they are now. And that's something that really is not true. Everybody, anyone who's listening now, and anybody out there, you are all already enough as you are. So what we need to learn really to recognize is, and what we can, I say what we need to, but what is useful to recognize is maybe we're missing the maybe we're missing the growth. So as we and the positivity. So what I'm saying is every step that you want to make in the right direction can be taken. So if you think of a messy kitchen, yeah, so and you can think of our mind as a messy kitchen, and it's like lots of dirty pots and pans and things. The first step might just be filling the sink up, right? Filling the sink up with hot soapy water. Now, next time you're faced with this horrendous messy kitchen, just recognize the smallest step that you take and allow yourself that win. So filling that sink up is a win, and then every single pot and pan that gets cleaned and dried and put away is a win. Mm-hmm. And the mental state, it can be likened to that, because we can think that messy kitchen is always going to be messy. We can think that there's no point in tidying it because it's going to be messy anyway, which is probably true. But the fact of life and growth is that, life is kind of that constant process of growth and improving and cleaning and, for the mind. So it's not necessarily where our state needs to be. It's more allowing the mental state to grow and allowing yourself to recognize that, however dissatisfied you may be, that state is going to change and is changing anyway, whether you like it or not. And the reverse is true. You can be totally in euphoria, and we recognize that also changes. And, it's a weather system, essentially. I hope that answered your question.
I love it. I love it, because the weather of joy, the weather of sadness, this too shall pass. But we can also be so grateful for the rain and the weather of sadness, and so grateful for the sunshine and the happiness. But it's all a reminder of being alive.
Absolutely. And, if change didn't happen, then nothing would be possible, right? So nothing could happen if change didn't happen.
Having experienced deep depression myself, there is this element of not recognizing any changing states. It seems to be a consistent state of hopelessness. And then that's when one starts thinking, well, the best scenario is to end my life, because this is hopeless.
Well, I would say you should at least try some old scotch first.
I don't know. That might be the cause of that state. Let me ask you this. It seems you became aware of a mental challenge you were experiencing. Yes?
Yeah.
No one said to you, Chris, you're suffering. You were like, oh, I'm suffering. True?
Yeah, sort of true. I mean, I can totally empathize with what you said there, though, because when I was in that state myself, I too thought that it wasn't changing. I think suicidal thought, I don't think it's a case of where you're suicidal or you're not. I think it moves along a spectrum in many ways. And I found it a lot easier and a lot more accessible to put myself on a spectrum than it was to say that I was suicidal. A lot of my insight actually came retrospectively, however, after I was out of it, because you kind of are lost. And, it's when you are in that position, it is really difficult to see. I mean, this is why, suicide statistics are so horrendous to look at, and sadly these things do happen. So a lot of what we need is, I believe connection rather than isolation. And it's just, the miracle of being able to get out of that isolation and find a connection which kind of gives us that magnetic pull out of where we are. I mean, I did know that something was wrong, but my experience of that was very dissatisfactory, which is part of why I'm doing the podcast now. My first visit to the doctor, he was convinced I just wanted a sick note so I could have a few weeks off work. And he didn't believe I had any mental problem. He was like, yeah, I've heard this before. I'm not giving you... well, he actually said, do you want a sick note? And I said, well, not really. I actually want to be able to go to work without feeling crappy about it. That's what I want, not to not go to work. But yeah, and then another visit to a doctor, you know, years later, I ended up being given a brochure of like a leaflet. I mean, I can find that anyway on the internet. I don't really need a doctor to give me a pamphlet. So yeah, the support kind of, yeah, I really struggled. And, you know, in retrospect, a lot of my big life-changing decisions that I made when I was going through this tough time were born from me at the time thinking I was doing the right thing and I was doing what was best. So to give you a bit of a history, to cut a long story short, I sort of left a long-term partner at the time, a long-term girlfriend, walked away from a house, you know, walked away from half the family, thinking that they deserved better than me. What was actually happening was I was having a pretty rough mental health problem, which I can look back now and I can see that for what it is. But it doesn't change the fact that back then, that's what I thought I needed to do. Right. And yeah, that's why we're here, is to kind of sort of give that voice that it may not be the case, and what you actually might need is to talk to somebody, and not somebody who's just going to tell you what they think they would like you to do. Because I got a lot of bad advice at the time from people that maybe weren't really thinking of the implications, because they weren't me. So it's very easy for me to say, you know, oh, well, you know, if it's not working out with your girlfriend, maybe you should leave, because there's plenty fish out there, and, you know, life goes on and you're still young. And, you know, maybe I could have had some more impartial advice that really considered the implications of what they were telling me to do. So yeah, I think I would say find good connections is probably, if you can,
ultimately what we are all searching for anyway. And then the flip side of that is be a good connection. Yeah. Right? Be connectable. Yes. Offer that empathy. Like instead of jumping into the advice piece right away, like just get down in it for a minute and feel with them.
Yeah. A lot of it, what I'm learning in counseling as a trainee counselor is just providing the secure base and the empathy. And that goes a massive way. You don't actually need to tell anybody what to do. A lot of what people need is very simply to be heard and to be validated. You know, if someone is going through depression, then they want that depression validated. They want someone that actually says there's not something fundamentally wrong with you, who you are. I can feel your depression, and if I was in your position, I would feel depressed too. You've got permission to be depressed, and let me share it with you. And that's what people need. They don't need to be, nobody needs to be told what to do. I can figure that out for myself.
I have a quick question. Like you just sparked some, how can one share another's depression in a positive manner? So instead of being pulled down into the drowning scenario, to share that scenario, but from a place of healing and uplift.
Yeah, there's two aspects to that. The way I see it is somebody who is really struggling in the rapids. So And we're kind of talking of the difference between sympathy and empathy as well. So when we have somebody who's, you know, really struggling in the rapids and the river's flowing really strong and they're really struggling to keep the head over the water. Now, somebody might be in a different part of the water where it's nice and calm and still. And that person might say, come over here. It's not too bad over here. Well, that's all well and good being over there where the water's nice and still to say, come over here. That person's struggling and he doesn't know how. So with practice, what we do as that person offering themselves as the connection, we get into the rapids with them. And, you know, I think sometimes it can be a misconception that we have to be with someone in a positive way. Just being with someone and you know, being down with them can help someone validate those emotions. And that is worth more than being sort of sharing that depression, but then trying to lift up. I think people when they have that companionship and, you know, that connection with somebody else, they can have, like I say, have that grounding to feel more secure. They feel less inclined that there's something wrong with them. You know, if they see someone joining them in this depressed state, but saying, "But come over here," they don't necessarily need that. I think they just need to share sometimes people need to share the sorrow and the darkness, and have it validated.
So, as a counselor in training, are you finding ways where you can do that without, like, are you finding ways to do that? And are there any concerns of, by putting yourself back in the rapids, you might find yourself back in the problem that you've spent so much time and energy healing from?
Yeah, it's a really good question, that. So as a trainee counsellor, I'm by no means an expert. I myself have to have therapy my experiences that I will have a therapist myself to talk to sort of say if I end up back in there, you know, the experiences I had, you know, if someone, because I might have a client, for example, who goes through something that triggers a similar memory in myself, but then I have a therapist and also a supervisor who I'll see every couple of weeks, who I can then talk to, and then they can be my secure base for when I've had that. But then also, this is why with experience you get better at it, but it's also why self-care is so important as well. You know, we can't just push ourselves to the side to be there for everybody else. We also need to give ourselves the chance to process and put things in perspective for ourselves. It's so important, because otherwise, you know, we can't really help anyone, because yes, we can maybe empathize and share the darkness with someone, but if we can't pull ourselves out of it, then we're not really offering that anchorage and sort of secure base to help them pull themselves out of it. All right.
I want to ask a very inappropriate question. Are you ready for that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Have you heard any good jokes about depression?
Yeah. Jokes about depression. Oh, man. Nothing's coming to mind. I'm sorry.
Answer. No, don't be sorry. That was one. That was basically all there are.
Okay.
I just want to make a comment. There's this piece that you so eloquently talked about, which is where you get in the rough water with the person.
Okay.
And you have to be resourced enough to actually stay afloat yourself in that space, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what you said about not making a requirement of them having to try to swim to the calmer water as part of getting in it with them. That is the basis by which that connection that's fueling the disruption is reestablished. It's like always in our systems, our nervous systems, our psychological systems, and our embodied systems, sometimes just being present with another person, the self can begin to heal already, right? There's these natural processes. And if not, then at least you've got company. And when we think about the world on a bigger scale, like on some level, we're all kooky, right? And what we really want the most is companionship, is we want to be with people that we can relate to. I think maybe I can ask this as a question. In your own experience, you were with your family or your girlfriend at the time, and there was this sense of wanting that community with them, but also then feeling some responsibility for the impact you were having. Right? Is that accurate?
Yeah, definitely.
And so were you saving them by leaving?
So by the family, I meant the other half's family. So that, obviously you have to accept that things part ways. I was, in my mind, giving them the opportunity to get something better than myself.
Yeah. So you were saving them.
Yeah, in a way. It wasn't so much that I was, bad for them, but they deserved better in my mind.
And I don't believe that that's true. Do you? And in retrospect, do you think that was actually true?
No, not now. And in fact, a lot of now I can look back retrospectively, a lot of the, thoughts that I was having actually confirmed how much I cared about the people I was with, rather than, but I didn't know that at the time. This is why, because I didn't know that. So, I was kind of flying blind.
This is why emotional intelligence is so important, because we can't all be healers, but we can at least be skillful in our own approach as we encounter these things with each other and be better at being together through these storms. I want to ask another question before Greg jumps in.
Of course.
And this may be a little pithy. We're talking about mental weather.
Yeah.
And it's also said that a certain part of Northern California, Seattle, has a lot of gray and rainy weather, and there's a lot of depression there, a lot of addiction. I'm wondering if Newcastle is similarly geographically impacted by the weather.
Possibly. I mean, I think we seem to be in a state where things are changing quite a lot. We're seeing a lot of very bizarre. We're seeing like windstorms unlike anything we've ever seen. I can't remember the last time we saw any snow. Like, things are getting warmer, and obviously last year we got we were almost at 40 Celsius in Newcastle, which that shouldn't be happening. So yeah, I think there's a lot of uncertainty, and I think definitely. I mean, obviously, the COVID pandemic has overshadowed a lot of things, but the weather in itself, is definitely affecting. A lot of people. There's a lot of uncertainty. It's like we're having a conversation at work today, and like with the strength of the wind, and there's a lot of people thinking, is the roof of my house really set up for this kind of wind? Is there going to be like houses in the neighborhoods? All of a sudden, it's going to be regular to have to replace your roof tiles every year. It is scary, and there's probably a lot of anxiety comes from that.
Switching gears a little bit, there's this wonderful phrase that you've created a website around and a kind of branding around: chatty geek, hidden dragon.
Yeah.
And that's a reference to an amazing movie.
It is.
But also, what is it about you that makes you a chatty geek? Like, what do you geek out on?
Well, the geeking is, I have a few that I love video games. I just adore video games. I geek out over Star Wars. all things Star Wars, all things Lord of the Rings. Um, the Matrix was a big game changer for me. That made me think about things differently. All sort of pop culture and martial arts. I'm a martial arts geek as well. I'm not as well read. I'm not a martial arts historian, but I love the philosophy behind it. I love the Shaolin monks sort of philosophy and state of mind and meditation and all that kind of things. But I think where the chatty geek comes from is kind of ironic, because I'd love to be chatty about it, but it's so hard to find people. You know, when you're surrounded in a male dominated workplace and everyone just wants to talk about either football or current events of some form that probably aren't that important. It's like not like the wars and things. They want to talk about whatever trivial current event is going on, and nobody wants to talk about martial arts or Buddhism or. So I'd love to be chatty about the geeky side and the hidden dragon. That kind of speaks to just the passion that's inside. That's and the wisdom that doesn't always. I mean, I don't like to say I'm wise because it sounds very pedantic, but the ideas that I have that I don't get a chance to share very often. That's why I like doing things like this.
Yeah. Well, let me say, like, after this is all over and we've recorded this and the podcast is over, I would love for you to connect with me anytime and we can geek out together on all of those things. I'm not listening to video games, but that's I am into all the other things you mentioned. And so let's actually stay connected after this so that we can geek out a little bit more.
I appreciate that.
So let me ask you a quick question. Midichlorians, thumbs up or thumbs down? For those in our audience, midichlorians are the source. Are the source.
My mind just shut off because now you guys are deep in geek world.
Yeah, thumbs up, but they could have been used better.
But the what?
Yeah. I said thumbs up, but they could have been used better.
They could have been used better. Got it.
Yeah, I think so.
Were you aware that Star Wars Celebration was in Britain last weekend? And did you want to go?
No, I wasn't. Sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry that you didn't get to go to that. Oh, it was
to be
right
honest,
there.
My weekends are totally chock-a-block with my counselling assignments and college
Jedi
work
training. I get it.
And all of that. Yeah, exactly.
So are you a hip hop fan?
Yeah, my music taste it covers everything.
A Wu-Tang?
Yeah, I like a bit of Wu-Tang Clan. Yeah.
All right. And do you like the kung fu movies from Hong Kong and China? And here in the United States, there's like Saturday afternoons were notorious for those kind of spaghetti Western kung fu movies. But they are, I say that like they were sort of.
Yeah, I love anything that sort of demonstrates I love Seven Samurai. I mean, I love that. I love that film. I love The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. I don't know, that can sometimes be a controversial, but I think that film is a work of art. Just in the artwork of how it's filmed. Obviously, anything with Bruce Lee. I adore the Ip Man movies. I think they're fantastic.
Did you watch the series that the Lee family produced that was based on something Bruce was attempting and passed away? It was San Francisco. Yeah.
I think I maybe started it. But couldn't quite get into it, unfortunately. But I did give it a go.
Okay.
Is it the one that covered him as like a younger adult
No, it's San Francisco during the gold rush, and it's you have Chinatown and the gangs there in Chinatown, 1800s. And
right.
This one gentleman, as I recall, he comes to San Francisco with a family connection, but that connection doesn't exist when he actually gets here.
Yeah, so his sister left China after he did something wrong.
Right.
And then he comes to find her at the behest of his father. To claim her, and she's already reestablished herself. And the beauty of this story is that Bruce began writing it, and it was never given an opportunity when he was alive, and his sister Shannon has brought it to life, and it's brilliant. It's called Warrior, and it's on Cinemax, I believe, is the
I thought it was
U.S.
HBO. I
Well,
don't know.
anyway,
And who knows?
it's worth giving another try if you're a Bruce Lee fan, because
Okay.
it really, the philosophy is there, and
All
there's
right.
so many juxtapositions of these different cultural motifs. And it's unfortunate that they didn't approve a third series or a third season, because the story wasn't quite done when they finished it.
And what's very Mark and I are very fascinated with white privilege and racism, and fascinated isn't the right word. We're engaged in really being a part of the healing of that.
Mhm.
And the story was great in showing white Western and the Chinese and the racism that was, deep, and then also showing some of the what would you call it, the aligning, where there were people who saw that racism and tried to heal it.
Right.
But
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. So I was thinking of a different one, obviously, but so it's called Warrior, right?
Yeah, Warrior.
Okay.
Really good. Check it out.
Yeah, will do.
And then email me and we'll set up a time to hang out and talk about it.
You're on?
Awesome. So what style of martial art are you like? You said Shaolin philosophy and Buddhist philosophy, but is it Wing Chun or Kung Fu that you practice, or is it another form?
Yeah, I practice a Korean style called Tang Sudo. So my style is Tang Sudo, which is probably closer to karate than it is to Taekwondo. Obviously, the popular Korean one is Taekwondo that you kind of will see in the Olympics and things. But we're very traditional in that we've sort of kept the lineages of our style. So we've kept practicing the karate styles of Japan, and also Korean styles, and also northern and southern Chinese styles as well. So it's a bit of an original MMA in many ways, which is quite funny, because obviously we have MMA now, which involves your boxing, jiu-jitsu, things like that. But in a way, it was an MMA in itself at the time. Because you have your Taekwon, which is kind of like a bit of a grappling style, and then your karate, your strikes from karate, and then your northern and southern. Again, influenced by Chi with your northern and southern styles. But I think it's been very refined these days, where it's very much a style in itself now.
And how did your teacher come to bring the lineage to your physical location? What can you say about your teacher and their journey to be in Newcastle?
Well, Grandmaster Lee, he I'm not sure, I'll have to remember when he came to the UK, but he came to the UK, or the Muda Kwan, which is our school, was formed in 1945, and I think Grandmaster Lee came to the UK, it was I think it was possibly in the 70s. Something like that. So he was invited by the founder to come to the UK to set up a club there. And then obviously over the years, he's had many students, and one student of his was Master Allerton, who actually trained in Middlesbrough, which is about an hour south from where I am now. But politics, people part ways, so my instructor then parted ways with Grandmaster Lee, but I'm still with Grandmaster Lee. I'm still with that federation today, and it's pretty much me really that's in Newcastle teaching for our federation, and the closest instructor to me. So my instructor is Master Tang, and he's in Leeds, which is about 2.5 hours south of me. So yeah, that's where I am now. It's quite difficult for me to train at the moment, but I have my own classes. So I I kind of teach most of the time now, and my practice is just sort of on my own mostly.
There's two teachers I know who are dear friends who have been practicing Tai Chi for decades. And they've told me that their teaching as a teacher is their practice. They absolutely learn from that.
It can be, yeah, definitely, because you see things that you didn't think were there. You'll see things in the posture of your students that you have that outside perspective looking at the students, and it makes you become very self-conscious, because obviously you don't want to be correcting something in someone, or
Right.
and then be doing it yourself. So you've got to be extra careful that you're not doing that. But yeah, I would absolutely say that teaching is the practice as well.
I've this is sort of circling back to the mental health thing. I'm wondering, has there been an opportunity for amends with the family and the relationship that you left?
Well, I think this is one of the realities of life is sometimes you don't get chance to make amends, and sometimes it's just not appropriate to try, and that in itself is something to work with. It gives you a lot more respect of the decisions you make. It makes you a lot more mindful of the thoughts and the words that you choose and the actions you take, because you realize that there's repercussions, and sometimes there's no going back. Unfortunately, you can't make amends always, because a lot of times, you go to people who you've hurt in the past, and it would actually cause more harm than good, them seeing you again. As much as you maybe want to apologize or get some form of reconciliation, it's just not appropriate to do that.
Wow. So there's an element of life where you take the hit and you just like that's a
Yeah.
hit that's just going to resonate for the rest of life.
Sometimes milk just goes sour and you can't put it back again.
Wow. Wow. Whew. That's a big one to sit with for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not the end. There's other opportunities. I'm married now. I got married last year to another incredible person.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and I wouldn't change that. So you've also got to. Well, I keep saying you have to. It's also useful to have that appreciation of the journey you've had.
You know what's interesting? You just hit on something that I've found as part of my healing journey. The musts, supposed to, have to.
Should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like really out the door with those.
Yeah, get rid of that. Get rid of that. Do you know, I'm finding a lot of, there's two words that I'm finding incredibly useful recently, and that's good enough. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be good enough.
That reminds me, did you ever watch the movie Babe about the sheep herding pig?
Oh yes, good enough. Oh, that'll do, pig.
That'll do. Yeah, that was it.
That'll do, pig. Yeah,
That was so on point, man.
yeah, yeah.
Just you mentioning your wife now, is there an element of there's a famous country song of unanswered prayers, and the story is, this person's thanking God that this relationship didn't work out because now they have this relationship, which is the right relationship for them.
Yeah.
Is that true to your story?
I think I'm just more about gratitude in the moment. And every moment, like every opportunity I get, every separate moment, even here talking to you two incredible guys, there's a lot that's happened in the past. If we go back forever, the amount of incredible coincidences and things that have happened in our lives, and you can getting that sense of gratitude and awe in a way for where we are. I think, you can't rule anything out, anything that's happened. You've got to kind of include it all in that awe, and gratitude, and that's more what I feel when I look at my life now. And I know there's struggles ahead, but it's now that counts.
Do you and your wife want children as part of your relationship?
No, interestingly, it's a decision we've made. That doesn't mean that we don't want to be an influence of the next generation. As an instructor, I am an influence in many ways of the next generation. In fact, I value mentoring much higher than the technical teaching of martial arts. Like actually just getting people's heads in the right place, being that person that's there for the 2 in 20 students that end up in a dark place, and being able to be the person that they know they could trust to talk to, is so important.
Do you find that in this kind of a bit to your own personal experience, are there aspects to the martial arts training that create dissonance of the mental state because you are delving so deep into consciousness that there's a seed of despair, let's say, and you strike upon it? Whereas if you had just gone along the surface of life, it never would have been struck, at least not this lifetime.
I love the word dissonance. I'm not sure what it means. Help me with that one.
It's like disharmony, not
Right.
not
Yeah, with martial arts and with meditation as well, you can make it what you want it to make it, and you can get out of it what you want to get out of it. So in my own martial arts practice, I do like to encourage investigation and leaving no stone unturned, especially with what goes on in the mind. And when you're doing a form, when you're practicing basics, when you're warming up, when you're stretching, when you're meditating, there's things that come up, and a lot of the times they'll get unnoticed, and a lot of the times they'll get pushed to the side and sort of not acknowledged. But I do think that there's a lot of strength and resilience can be found by not pushing things to the side and trying to notice as much as possible, because you can always have a thought, and there's no you'll learn that there's no harm in recognizing a thought and thinking, oh, that's interesting, where did that come from, why did that come up, and how is that making me feel? That's interesting. Now what do I seem to do, what's my next action seem to be when I feel that feeling? And
this is potentially a stupid question, but you are my interaction with you is you're a very conscious individual.
okay.
Is your wife of equal commitment to that consciousness?
Yeah, I mean we're different people. I think I'm quite different. I feel like I'm quite different, and I know that there's lots of people that are equally as different, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I don't think so. I mean, my wife is an incredibly compassionate and caring person, in her own way, but that manifests from a different place to where it manifests from within me. So yeah, we're not quite the same, but we work very well together.
Would you be able to say what do you both create that is working well?
Connection, security, and love. Essentially, just love. You know, it's people shy away from that word, but it is it is what it is, and it's a very all-encompassing power
The power of connection.
for growth. Yeah, for growth.
I want to ask, what's your wife's favorite meal that you cook for her, and when was the last time you cooked it?
Yeah, my wife's favorite meal that I cook for her is poached eggs on a muffin with avocado.
And when was the last time you cooked it for her?
What day is it now? Friday. It was Monday.
Oh, brilliant. All
Yeah.
right. No hollandaise sauce with it, huh?
It depends what we've got in the fridge. We kind of be quite resourceful. We tend to have stuff stocked up in the fridge, like mostly vegetables and things like that, and we'll tend to try and use. We don't like wasting food.
And avocados are available in Newcastle.
Yeah, super good as well.
All right.
Okay, so it's time for the musical portion of our show.
Okay.
I would love to know who currently you feel is the most resonant, the most enlightening, heart lifting artist in the music world for you personally.
Does it have to be someone?
No, nobody
like
famous.
new?
It could just be what matters to you, what you love.
There's so many. My
That's an unfair question.
Can I tell you my go-tos?
Sure.
Yeah. I love a bit of Johnny Cash.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I love a bit of Johnny Cash. I think he's got something for every mood.
Yeah.
And speaks to a lot. Have you heard of an artist called Newton Faulkner?
No.
Okay, so he's a British artist. He's a fantastic songwriter and an incredible musician. So yeah, I would definitely say he's up there for me. Who else am I liking? I'm a bit of an oldies fan.
What do you consider oldies?
Yeah, well, that's. I knew I was walking into a trap there.
Yeah.
It's a trap. It's a trap.
Oh,
Star Wars
from the
pulled that.
90s, Nirvana. What?
That's yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I love a bit of AC/DC. I love a bit of the Eagles. I could go on forever. I mean, I'm probably not bringing to mind the ones that I would like to immediately bring to mind. But yeah, there's so many. I just like all sorts.
Are you a Spotify person?
I'm an Apple Music person, and I probably should say the wife is a massive Elvis fan as well.
Oh my God.
Did you see that latest film?
Yeah.
She has. Yeah, she has. She's been to pictures to see it. She said it was incredible. Yeah, really good film.
I saw it with my youngest daughter, and I love his film Moulin Rouge, and I was expecting something similar to that.
Right.
But once reflecting on it and talking with my daughter about it, I realized it was a brilliant biopic, truly honoring the individual, the humanness, the dark side, the stuff that wasn't good, and also the brilliant aspects.
Yeah.
And when they ended it with the real footage of the man, his last known recorded, live performance, and even though he was a mess, when it came time to sing,
he just switched it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beyond switching on. It's like that. Like, yeah. I was just talking with my brother last night. You mentioned Johnny Cash, how he took that 9 Inch Nails song "Hurt."
Oh yeah.
And turned it in there's words just fall short of what these creative individuals do.
Yeah.
And the resonance of what they create.
100%.
Do you and your wife have the Disney Plus channel?
We do, of course. Star Wars. That's my access to me Mandalorians and all of that.
So did you see the U2 thing with David Letterman?
No, I haven't yet. I have seen it up there.
It's brilliant.
Right, okay.
And part of what's brilliant is David has a unique way of getting into the personal of these individuals who usually are well protected for lots of great reasons. And to see the Edge and Bono's relationship with each other, the relationship with music and the creative process, and then with Dublin, their hometown. And you talk about musicians of a locale, and there's some local artists that it was brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely give that a go. I do like a bit of U2 as well, to be fair. I did watch the one, was it David Letterman that did one with Barack Obama way back?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember
Needs
watching
no
that. That was
introduction.
incredible.
He did this whole
Yeah.
series. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another brilliant.
Oh, incredible. Yeah.
All right, I want to ask another open-ended question, which may take us over the hour. Do you have time, Chris?
I've got 3 hours if you want. I can be here all
That's
night.
very
Okay, cool.
kind.
Don't
So
worry.
here's the question.
Yeah.
Deep in the past of your own location are what I would call the indigenous roots of Newcastle, or of where your family history is from.
Okay.
What do you know about your own indigenous roots?
Oh, sadly, not an awful lot. I mean, I know my sort of grandparents were originally from Middlesbrough. Me grandfather on my mother's side was an incredibly clever man. He was a chemical engineer, and he was sort of involved in a lot of things during the war. Me nan was I'm trying to think.
Wait, what did you say? Your Nam?
Nan.
Oh, me nan, Nan. Sorry, it's short for Nana, like Nana. Or,
Okay,
yeah, it's funny how we all have different names for different ones, isn't it?
yeah.
And then on my father's side, they were both RAF, so they were both in the Air Force. And I don't know any further back than that, although I do know an interesting one on my father's side. I don't know if it's my great grandfather or my great grandfather, but he was shot in the back in Australia during the gold rush. So that's like a cool story. Not cool for him, but it's a cool story for us to be able to tell.
Does any of this familial history inform your spiritual viewpoints? How would you characterize your view on spirit, soul, the unseen world?
Afterlife.
Yeah, I totally found my own way with that one. I think mostly my family is probably Christian, but not like a devout church every Sunday sort of style. I mean, I sort of recognize myself mostly as a Buddhist, but it's still a bit of a hexagonal peg in a round hole sort of thing, in that it fits, but maybe not perfectly. So I've kind of found my own way with my spirituality, but I mean, Buddhism's been incredibly useful in me in sort of reinforcing my ethics and how I live my life and my viewpoint, and my comfort with life and death and all of those things in between. It's been hugely useful.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Eminem or Foo Fighters?
Now, it'd be great if they did something together, actually.
That's the right answer.
Now, you said you listened to some of our podcasts.
Yeah, I did.
Did you pick that up?
Of course I did. Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say I probably listened to Foo Fighters more than Eminem, but I like them both, and it would be awesome if they did something together. I'm in agreement.
So we keep putting that out there. We're hoping
Yeah.
that happens someday.
Well, yeah, Dave, if you're listening, because he'll be listening to this show.
Yeah,
Without a
definitely.
doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Dave and M both. They're
Yeah.
probably pondering right now.
Yeah.
How do we get a hold of each other?
Yeah. Well, Definitely. I mean, it happened to Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney got him on, didn't he, when he did his show? So Foo Fighters, Eminem, Paul McCartney, and the Boss all on together.
Oh my God, what a show that'd be! It'd go on for centuries. Man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow,
Chris?
I feel very satiated.
Just take that moment, yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Paul, someone I've really admired, is again an artist who just seems to remain open and creative. How old is that gentleman? And he still seems vital, where I think the Stones are vital, but they're kind of replaying the old hits of the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
To a degree.
Paul McCartney's like a TARDIS of music. You don't realize how much he's actually done, and the more you look into what he's done,
exactly,
the more you're like, wow. It's like, how did he think of all these new ideas? And
even that damn Christmas song I've come to love.
What's not to love?
When I first heard it, I was like, okay, but over the years, it's grown on me.
What's your thoughts on the frog song? Do you like that one?
The what song?
The frog one. Do you know the boom, 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 hiya? Do you know that one? No. Oh, you haven't heard that one? Oh, well, look it up.
Oh, see, two musical gems. We got Newton Faulkner, and Paul McCartney's
frog song.
I don't know if it's called the frog song.
A bell. Was it on? Because he came out with an album, I recall, maybe right before COVID. That was sort of this traveling theme.
Because I'm not sure now.
It was pretty good. It was a good album. I liked it. I was like, oh wow, because I don't know. There was been a few releases he did where I was like, okay, but I remember this album I liked as a whole. Anyway,
so can you confirm or deny the rumors that you're the next James Bond?
I cannot confirm or deny to confirm or confirm to deny.
That's a yes.